or not? Telling your personal stories. Hey, thank you all for coming. We are here tonight for two public hearings on two different subjects. The first one, as posted, was to get resident input on short-term rentals in Lyon Township, Roscommon County, Michigan. Would like to begin the proceeding for that meeting. I'm going there right now. So could we have a call to order and start the meeting here, Clerk Pert?
You want to have a pledge first or no?
I got them word versed here, but
Okay, that's fine. Roll call. Trustee Monet.
Here.
Trustee Detmer. Supervisor Bertrand.
here.
Treasurer
Yeah.
Hunt. And Clerk Pern here.
Okay, all present. All right, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. I'm going to make a motion that we proceed with the public hearing posting to gather resident input on short-term rentals for potential implementation of a short-term rental ordinance in Lyon Township. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion from the board?
Absolutely. So thank you for being here this evening, everyone. First and foremost, because of the nature of the topic at hand, and I know it's a hot topic and I know it's a contentious topic. I have a few things to say about what's transpiring right now. And that's just because anyone who knows who I am knows I am by the book. I will be by the book and I will stay by the book. All things being equal, we are here this evening and I do want the resident input. However, I want it made to be very, very clear for the record that this is not a legal posting of a public hearing. And I will tell you why. From the MTA book, and I've done plenty of research to make sure we all understand the procedures moving forward. Public hearings by definition is always an agenda item at a regular or special open meeting. It can never stand alone. Even if the meeting is held only to conduct a public hearing, it is still a meeting of any public body conducting the hearing, and the Open Meetings Act applies. Everything that was posted for this meeting constitutes a standalone public hearing. The posting outside, the posting on the website, even though it says special notice, some could contend that that is a special meeting, but we never called a special meeting. Therefore, by proxy, we shouldn't even be here tonight because we did not post a special meeting with the required 18-hour notice by the state of Michigan under the Open Meetings Act. That said, we are here. I do want to hear public input, but there are a few things that I think this board should be very concerned with and take a prudent and wise approach to this. Since there is no special meeting on the table, we should not legally vote on anything this evening for that very reason, because it will not be a sanctioned proper meeting. We are not to, by statute, allowed to vote during the hearing. The hearing has to be closed, and we are only allowed to vote by law in an open session contained within the special meeting that was never properly called. So here we are.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other comment from the board? Okay, hearing none on the motion that we proceed with the public hearing as posted to gather resident input on short-term rentals for potential implementation of a short-term rental ordinance in Lyon Township. Could we, all those in favor signify by saying aye? Aye.
I under protest for the people.
Okay, I have 4 ayes. Are you aye or nay?
Him and I, because I want to hear from the people.
5 ayes. Okay. So as it was posted, township board comments will be first. And include a handout that's on that table explaining the differences between the short-term rental ordinance as a police power ordinance or a zoning ordinance. Then the public comment will then be allowed after that. Short-term rental public input is received, or after it's received, the township board may then choose to take action on proceeding and in what manner with a short-term rental ordinance for Lyon Township. Okay, so township board comments being first, I'll start.
I'm sorry, we have not legally opened the hearing yet.
We voted to proceed with the hearing.
Right, but we have to legally open the hearing to be able to close it.
Would you like to make a motion, to open it?
Sure. I make the motion that we formally and legally open the hearing. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second that.
Oh, you want me to say it?
Well, you're doing it.
Oh, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, I didn't hear any nays.
Oh, any nays? Sorry.
Okay. Aye. So, in response to resident input, I had our attorney draft something, which is on the table, and I'm going to read it mostly because this is recorded. So this is partially for the sake of the video recording and to give you guys time to, or gals and guys, time to absorb what this says. This is from our attorney, Michael Bila, from the municipal law firm of Bachman Clow, explaining the differences. Police power licensing ordinances are those that apply across the entire township, but make no reference to any zoning districts. Police power short-term rental ordinances are basically a licensing ordinance. Applicants submit information about their proposed operation, must prove they can meet certain conditions, and then they will be issued a license by the township to operate a short-term rental. Typically, these licenses expire each year and need to be renewed. Police power licensing ordinances have less grandfathering protection. You can revoke a license or decide to completely prohibit short-term rentals again. And once these licenses expire, they will not be renewed until there is nothing really that a property owner can do. As far as the type of regulations available under police power, it is essentially anything except zoning districts. You can require inspections of building, health, etc., limit numbers of people who can stay, limit number of days, limit the total number of short-term rentals, require a local agent to respond to complaints. This list goes on. It is important to note that even with a police power ordinance, you will need to amend your zoning ordinance to state that the short-term rentals can be allowed as a use so long as they comply with the licensing ordinance. In this way, you can limit the districts they end up in. Point 2, zoning ordinances are defined by their reference to specific zoning districts. You can regulate short-term rentals exclusively through a zoning ordinance and accomplish much of the same things as described above. Essentially, you make short-term rentals a special land use in certain districts and then require them to go through that special land use approval process. The benefit of doing these through zoning is that the township is already set up to accept and consider zoning permit applications through special land use applications. It is a familiar system that works well and makes sense for short-term rentals, which are at their root an alternative type of land use. The problem with special land uses is that if the township decides in the future that they want to prohibit or restrict short-term rentals, anybody currently operating would get to keep operating at that same level as long as they complied with the original permit. They would be, and that's in quotes, grandfathered, but the permit could still be revoked if, that should be they, violate its provisions. The second part of this is about the zoning. I will read it now. The argument that it is illegal to allow businesses in a residential district reflects a misunderstanding of zoning. There's absolutely nothing prohibiting us, when he says us, he's talking we as Lyon Township, from allowing whatever we want in whatever district we want. Zoning is entirely defined and established by the Township Planning Commission and Board. We could very well decide to allow barbershops, boat rentals, metal smithing factory, etc., in the R1 district. I would obviously advise against it, but it is not illegal to add new uses to a district. The name of the district is just a name. It doesn't ban us from adding kinds of uses there. Also, as you said, and he's referring to me, an amendment would just allow short-term rentals there. It would not mean that any business of any type can go there. Second part is about fertilizer. I'll leave that out till we get to that public hearing. So you all have that. You had a little time to digest it. So as far as public comment or board comment, I have some additional stuff, but let's hear from somebody else from the township board on what you'd like to say about this public hearing for short-term rentals.
Oh, I'll go. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody that did show up and sent their concerns. Patty Dennis, Wayne Brooks, Patty Richards, Troy Byra, John Davis, Martha Barta, Diane Hagel, John Barta, Dennis Hugby, and Dorothy Ganny. I read every single one of these, and it is clear to me that people don't want these, period, in the township. That's my gathering from this. Having said that, I don't think that's legally feasible, I will say on that. Timothy can explain maybe more. But I spoke with our representative, Ken Borton, today about this exact issue and where they stand in the Michigan House right now. And there's been a lot of talk. They're going to pass one for the state overall. So currently there's not a state mandate on short-term rentals, but his opinion is they will pass something this term, and it will clearly identify counties and townships will not be able to ban short-term rentals. Whether they do or they don't, that's here nor there. But in the meantime, we need to get an ordinance together that reflects all the residents' wishes in these numerous emails, and I agree with them. I mean, there's a lot of things that we need to do to regulate. They're a business. They have to be regulated properly. They have to be enforced properly, and they have to be limited. So that's what I want to say. That's my opinion. And Timothy knows more on the legal aspect of that. So I'll let him take it from there if he wants.
Sure, I can chime in.
No, I think we better wait for Timothy.
Okay, please, yeah. Yeah, and I will be, absolutely.
That 5 minutes flies fast.
Yeah, well, not this time.
I would say the state has promised before some quick action, and we've been disappointed. They have not come through in a timely manner. I received a total of 28 emails, 9 calls. Most of them were against the STRs completely. A few wanted restrictions that could be enforced, and every one of these was heartfelt. I think they put their heart into these letters, these emails. Some of them were just against people that were buying land speculatively to have a house on there just to rent, just to make money. And I would certainly object to that too. I only have 8 houses in my street and we're not blessed with one of these STRs. I'm very lucky. I understand that. What I don't understand is how so few people that are for the STRs wanted to write letters. Only a few. Only a few, a very small percentage. We don't want to restrict any owner from renting his property for a short time or something like that. Maybe even a family member. I'm not trying to get into somebody's head, trying to say what good, is a week good, is 2 weeks good? But the violations that all these letters have mentioned, they're real. There's parking on somebody else's property. There's blocking access to their own property. All of these things are real. The noise, the various contests that take place at these things. These renters do not care the same as regular owners. That's for sure. There's nobody that will deny that. A regular owner will take care of his property the best he can and probably give a darn about his neighbors. These renters do not. At least a percentage of them do not. A bigger percentage are people that care just as much as you and I about property. They want to come in, they want to spend a week in heaven. And that's what this lake is to me. I'm one of the lucky ones that get to look at this lake every morning when I wake up. I'm very fortunate and I'm taking every one of these letters to heart, just like Kevin has. We got to do this. We can't say that you represent all of them because they don't. But so far, the majority of the people that are speaking for or against the STRs are definitely against them. That's all I have.
Steve, you got anything right away? Or you want me to go? Again, thanks for all for coming. I read and answered all the emails I got and was on the phone a couple times yet today. It was astounding to me how many people do not realize I heard quite a bit of, they do this, they do that, and I said, you can call the police, you can let us know. Well, you can't come out. I know we can't come out there, but if you let us know, we could do something about it if we had a short-term rental ordinance, because then we can impact whether or not they have a permit. I'm somewhat astounded. The one particular lady had no idea that they could complain about. And conversely, maybe connected, there was only 4 complaints in the Roscommon County Sheriff's Department over the whole last year. All were for noise, for fireworks. 4th of July wasn't short-term rental related at all. I spent almost a year as the ordinance officer. I heard no complaints about short-term rentals. I heard complaints about a lot of things that people wouldn't sign. I didn't hear anything about it other than private conversations. I landed a long time ago on written complaints get you results, written complaints get answers. It's been on the webpage for almost a year now. If you feel you're threatened or you have serious trespassing violations, you need to call police. And that's what I encourage them to do. And I also heard today, well, we call police and they don't come. I did talk with the sheriff's department. They will come when they can, but you would have to understand that maybe on a Saturday night, they're busy doing other things and they can't come out there to look at some car that's parked, or even if somebody's being too loud. We have a noise ordinance, 11 o'clock. It's a violation in this township. If they exceed that, if you let us know and you take videos, if you have some kind of proof, we can certainly look into it. Well, we're here tonight to hear your input on these 2 different potential ordinances. You're certainly free to say whatever you want to say in the public comments. But I want to reiterate that tonight's hearings are not about deciding either potential ordinances details. Only to hear your input and decide what direction this board might take for either potential ordinance, the other one being a fertilizer setback. I went through the law firm handout. As far as my personal comments, I think some history needs to be involved here. This board, sitting board, repealed the previous short-term rental ordinance for several reasons. One of them being it was too restrictive. There was several. We repealed it. This board created a new short-term rental draft addressing those issues and others, and we passed it 4-1 to go to the planning commission. The planning commission had that draft for almost a year and made changes to address their concerns and returned their draft to the township board. So tonight, after public input, it is my hope that this board, this sitting board, will vote to either continue to pursue creating and eventually adopting a short-term rental ordinance, and if so, by what means, police power or zoning. For my comment as a supervisor, we don't know how many short-term rentals we have. A lot of guesses. Denton Township went through the same process and landed on a starting point is to have a short-term rental ordinance and then start tracking it, figure out where you're at and regulate them as needed. I thought that that was a really smart move. You cannot regulate them unless you have an ordinance. So right now we got nothing. We have had nothing for a long time. Any short-term rental can be amended. If this board, shouldn't say we, if this board happens to pass a short-term rental in the future based on we decide tonight that we're going to go in that direction, you can amend them at any time. If there's something in there that is not working well, we can amend it. If it's police power, we have a lot more power even than that. But currently there's no way to regulate short-term rental usage and allowances in Lyon Township. And thank you for coming again. Go ahead, Mr. Monet or Mr. Decker.
Steve, you'd like,
I'm an up north guy. Maybe the 2 worst months in this. My wife says I talk too quietly and something else, and can't remember what the other thing is, but you trying to speak up. I'm an up north guy. To me, the 2 worst months of the year are July and August, when all the tourists come up. I like small towns. I like clean air. I like quiet. I like trees. I like planting a garden. I like not being bothered by people. My current house, I've had 4 short-term rentals close to it, across the street from me. One of them was on for probably about 12 years or so, and it's not managed well. And people are being loud all night long. Switchers off the deck, loud music, yelling, disrespecting property, all those kind of things. And this person that supervised that was worthless. You could call him up and nothing would happen. Fortunately, I'm pretty good at handling disruptive people, and I wouldn't hesitate to call the cops. First, I would warn them. I'd go over and talk to them, and they'd go, "We're on vacation." And I'd say, "I understand you're on vacation, but I have to live here, and I have to sleep sometime, and I have to go to work. So I can't, because as soon as you leave, somebody else is coming, and they're on vacation too. And I can't go 3 months without sleep. So, you're going to have to behave yourself or I call the police and file a complaint against you. And I just was matter of fact with them. I wasn't mean, I wasn't nasty, I wasn't threatening. I just told them like it was. And most of the time, they would behave themselves. Now, another short-term rental has three buildings, three different cottages all on one lot. And it's run by a very good guy, a very good caring guy. I've got his telephone number. I've talked to him numerous times. And the last incident, and the people that come there, the people who have come up to Higgins Lake for years, that they've come to those cottages for years. It's their family thing that they do every July or every August or every June or whatever. They come up and they're steady customers. They come up, they're respectful, they're good people. And on the off chance that I get a bad one of the examples was last summer, they had a dog that was not leashed. If you're on vacation, you don't have to leash your dog. And I'm walking my dog, and this dog comes out, and it's big, and it's aggressive, and it comes out, and it's barking, and hair's all standing up, and all that kind of stuff. And I yell at the dog. Well, the guy comes up, and he gets the dog, and I said, "We have a leash law in this township. You have to have your dog on a leash, and especially that dog's an aggressive dog. Put him on a leash." So I start walking, and this lady comes out to the road. And she's got her hands on her hips and she's staring at me. And I said, "Can I help you?" And she said, "I just want to know who it is that was harassing my son." And her son's like 25 or something. And so I explained to her what I said about it. And she gave me a good tongue lashing. And so I just went home. I called up the guy that owns the place. He kicked him out right then. He's a good owner of an STR. He takes care of business. He's a neighbor, and he makes sure that things are run right. It's very seldom that I ever have a problem with the people that rent his place. So I've seen both ends of it, and I can see if you've got a noisy place next to you and you've got somebody like that clown that was renting the place across the street from me and you got noise all the time, not a constitutional right to enjoy your property. You can't enjoy your property when that's happening. So I can see a balance, what I can see. So I can see a balance of good quality renters who are neighbors, who take care of, who will listen to the neighborhood and will take care of the bad eggs and get them out of there. And the bad ones, you just got to be able to take their license away and stop them from doing it. So some people are for it, some people are against it. I am for good quality short-term rentals that care about their neighborhood and care about the people that live there. And I'm against money-making scoundrels who just buy land, turn it over into a short-term rental. They run it from Tennessee or Texas or whatever and screw up the neighborhood for everybody. That's my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Monet.
Yep, here we are.
Disrespect. I want to check his
No,
recording.
please, none whatsoever. Before I get into some of this finer points of Mr. Bila's summation and everything else, I'm sitting here tonight a little befuddled, and I'll tell you why. So we're now getting into a portion of legislative duties will come where we're looking at zoning, we're looking at police powers and the differences, and we're looking at what's fair and reasonable and has to be municipal wide or it just can be zoned. Well, I'm taking this probably too serious, but very, very seriously for one very good reason. I fought tooth and nail for the last 6 years on different ventures within this community. And I have nothing No disrespect whatsoever to say anything bad about the last board, but I almost begged people to get on board with the idea when it came to, let's say, for instance, the septic ordinance, where I'll even speak of myself, a brand new septic system, but I was going to be forced into an inspection. And one person, and one person only, who sits here tonight, had the bravery to stand up and agree that would be unreasonable and actually a disgrace to the due process to not have it uniform across the township, and that was Patty Dennis. She's the only one who spoke up and realized that. So I sit here tonight befuddled that you have Garrish Township that just made an aggressive move. You had a short-term rental ordinance from the last board. There are people who are sitting here this evening who never spoke up once about a full ban, about how wrong we are, about how, we're not doing the right thing for the community. And I'm really, really baffled. And I want to know, how do we work together as a people when the hypocrisy runs so deep with all of us, myself included? It's got to change. Now, contrary to what most people will believe, everything Mr. Mr. Supervisor Bertrand read this evening is exactly what I've been saying for months. I agree with his assessment. I mean, it is spot on. It is the letter of the law. It's the way it should be. Many will be shocked to believe that, in a sense, I will disagree with Supervisor Bertrand all day, and everyone knows that. However, I will not take away the fact that he stands by what he believes is the right thing to do as legal agent of this township based on Mr. Biela's recommendation. I don't have to agree. That's not my place. But this has to stop. If we're going to make some progressive and reasonable moves for a township, we have to come together instead of this constant, it's okay for this, I won't speak. We all have friends in Garrish Township, and not one person spoke up about things they're doing over there, about police power, about zoning, what's right or what's wrong. And I just don't get it. So that's where I'm at with that. That said, some things that Treasurer Hobbs brought up that, yes, the township would be in a position to fully ban short-term rentals. The Rayum versus Spring Lake Township Court opened the door for future rulings, the Supreme Court ruling that stated that because of Spring Lake Township's definition of a motel, that the language was so close to the language of a short-term rental ordinance stood by and was drafted as such, it fit that definition. And therefore, since motels, i.e. a commercial endeavor, are not allowed in R1 residential districts, the courts ruled they could ban them. Technically, based on our own zoning, Section 1202, I said this at the last meeting, just in case someone didn't understand it. Within each zoning district, uses that are not expressly permitted by this ordinance are prohibited. That one sentence alone, upheld by the state Supreme Court, November 22nd, 2023, permissive zoning. So since technically right now, yes, the courts have ruled way more often than not, contrary to some beliefs, that these are commercial endeavors. We could ban them. People could sue us because they're involved there, but so be it. But that does not take away from the fact that we have the right, under the authority of the state of Michigan, to change the zoning. I don't think anyone should ever forget that. I've heard from many people that this is a money grab, or from a few. Well, I want to remind everyone that the state constitution and laws state that this ordinance, if and when it's put into place, we are only allowed to collect the limited amount necessary to run the ordinance. Wages, administrative duties, planning commission, whatever is involved. That's it. We're not allowed to make money off of this. This is not a money grab like some may think. Mr. Biela's assessment of police power versus short-term rental. Well, I'm going to get right into what I think should happen because I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. I believe in a full spectrum, multifaceted hybrid system. I've talked to many other townships about this, many clerks. I've done my own legal research. And this is what I think should happen. Not that it matters, but here we are. I'd like to see for our, let's just take R1 residential, single-family residential districts. I would like short-term rentals to only be allowed by a special use permit only. That's it. No more, no less for the amount the boards decides. At that point in time, there will be a heading underneath that section, section 602, uses permitted by special exception only, that will go straight to the police power regulation for all things regulatory due to or concerning a short-term rental. And the reason I say that is because even Mr. Bila stated this. Whitney Township, which I like what they did, took their zoning or took the short-term rental and ran it all through zoning. There's no turning back from that. Anyone who was lawfully using a short-term rental in their capacity will grandfathered in until the non-conforming use goes away. So they're in it. By allowing short-term rentals by a special exception use only into residential districts that we choose as a board, the idea that those uses would be permitted. However, under police power, any action that would come before the board or the community later on could be changed by one vote. If we say now that, let's say, 500 feet apart is good, if it were in zoning, we can't change that. We can change it under police power. If we say that 2 per bedroom, up to 12 people per unit is sufficient under zoning, can't change it. Police power, you can. So after some lengthy discussions with people, I feel very confident that if we get this into special exception use, and this is also better for the community, because as I've stated before, if we get this under a special exception use only, you have the right to protest, you have the right to petition, you have the right to even go to the state and declare the zoning invalid if you choose. That would be your choice. You can't do it with police power. So the actions of allowing them as opposed to regulating the activities, to me, have to be separated. At the end of the day, that if we even said, let's just take an easy number, 50 rentals, all 50 of those rentals would go before someone that the board chooses to put in place, whether it's the zoning administrator or an official that we hire or decide that we'll look at all applications. All applications will have to go through a very strict and rigorous process to make sure they meet all the qualifications. Unfortunately, with all the hard work the Planning Commission has done, and I'm grateful for that, we could take their recommendations, but it's not necessary under police power. State statute dictates that we do not need a recommendation from the Planning Commission for a police power ordinance. And I'm okay with that because there's parts of it we can take out and use. But for me, this is where the Planning Commission comes in next. Once all those applications have been reviewed and passed inspection, every one of those applications goes before the Planning Commission. It can be done, well, it's not as bad as it looks, seems, Ron, no. You can do them in bulk in a sense. You can list the parcels, you can have votes on it because the number will be already preset by this board. It's a very, very quick and easy process. It's not like, oh God, we have to have a special hearing for each one. But this also allows you, the people, to come in and also have another voice about this. You could put forth evidence that they are troublemakers. You could put forth evidence that it's not viable. You could put forth that, as I've spoken to some, if we say 500 feet and you can measure 480, there's your argument. It gives you more of a voice even. Only after it goes through a recommendation process with the Planning Commission will it come to the board for final approval to allow those permits to go forth for those people. And then we move on. So, thank you.
So you're done, or so?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I really believe that there is a reasonable and responsible and respectful way to get this done that is mutually beneficial to the community. I think they do need to be regulated. I don't want to be inundated by, my dead end road, kids day and night up and down that road. It is horrible. It's a dead hell. They want to use my circle driveway to chase each other around. No, it's not going to fly. But I have no problem with calling the sheriff just like that or doing whatever. I'll sue if necessary. It doesn't bother me, obviously. But anyway, at the end of the day, I've looked around the state. I can't find one truly multifaceted hybrid system. And I think we should move forward with something that truly speaks to this so we have control of where they're located, but also the regulatory authority to change as needed. And that doesn't mean change things for some of the better ones. That means we can even lower the numbers. Because there's a lot of things we can do, but that has to stay in police power, not zoning. Because if it's zoning, we are locked. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I favor not having additional board comments. I'm sure there's many, but We have all spoke. Let's open it up to public comment. And if you'd like to say something, raise your hand and come on up. We can turn that microphone. Oh, is that?
I thought he was gonna go say something.
You didn't know what?
I did, you're right.
Okay. Raise your hand, you'll be recognized and come on up and please use, if you can stay about that far away from the mic, it'll pick it up. Come right on up. Just state your name and where you're from and let us know what you'd like to say. You got 5 minutes.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Connie Harper, and I am a Lyon Township resident, and I'm a year-round resident. The only one on my block, other than my neighbor across the street. The rest are family-owned. Years ago, the people that own them now grew up there. They went to school here. So they're the summer people that own the cottages. They respect their cottage and the neighborhood. They're wonderful. The problem I had about 2 years ago, my wonderful neighbors decided to move down the lake to a bigger house, and they sold their cottage on the water, and I'm next to it. And at the signing, after everybody had put pen to paper, they were told, oh, guess what? We're going to run a B&B. Never told them that. He felt so badly, he came over to my house to apologize and said if he had known they were going to do that, they would not have sold it to them. And the problem with that was they live in Arizona. They came for the month of July. And they brought 2 dogs, and I have 2 cats. And the first thing I did when I moved into my forever home was put a screened-in porch in for my cats. Now they've got dogs running over, jumping on my screens, trying to get at my cats because they're not using the leash law either. And this went on for about 1.5 years, and thank goodness they sold it. And I have wonderful new neighbors now. They're young. They have a little boy. They're happy to be here, just like I am. Everyone here has been so wonderful. When my husband died, I was going to build a home down near Farwell, near Lake George. We had an acre on the waterfront. And I was walking the property with the person that was trying to figure out where my septic tank was going to go and my well was going to go. My phone rang in my purse, and my son said, wait, you've got to come up and see this house that his wife had found for me. And there's one more day of bidding, and that was going to be it. So we had to make an appointment. I drove up here to his cottage at Houghton Lake. We came over. I walked into this house and I burst into tears. And I said, where was this kitchen when I had a husband, 3 kids, and a dog and 2 cats? It was the kitchen of my dreams, the house of my dreams, everything a retired person would want. I have a Generac, I have underground sprinklers, which these people were parking on. I had to have 2 of them replaced for the price of $39 a piece. I politely went over and asked them not to park on my grass in front of my flower bed. I think they thought that was part of the street. Well, no. And I had to politely go over several times and ask them to keep their dogs in or on the leash so that my cats weren't getting frightened to death. So these are the problems that I had. Now I have other neighbors who are now using their home for a B&B for a few weeks in the summer. They're wonderful people. But their agent is in Traverse City. They're from Chicago. So if I have a problem with the people, I know I can call the police or the sheriff, and I can politely go over and say, here's what we do here. No noise after 11, no fireworks, things like that. But why did I have to? And I talked to the owner of the cottage, and he apologized profusely, and he said, I guess the the laws of the neighborhood that I put up next to the door weren't clear enough. They were getting jet skis and tying them up to our beautiful dock that our neighborhood paid for, which they're not allowed to do overnight, 2 jet skis. I didn't go talk to them about that. I just was concerned about my property and my gardens and my cats. And I love it here. Everybody here is wonderful. And the problem with these people coming in, as Stephen said, they don't respect our property. They don't respect our rules. Of course, they want to have a wonderful vacation. I understand that. We rented a cottage at Houghton Lake for 25 years, every summer for 2 weeks. Well, now they turned them into what they call condominiums and have gone out of the business of renting them, unfortunately. But my son is at Houghton Lake and he said they have an ordinance that does not allow short-term rentals. So his cottage, which is just back far enough from his neighbor that he doesn't have to pay waterfront taxes, is a beautiful view of the north side of Houghton Lake. It's quiet. They've got loons. We lost our loon. He left because his wife was killed. I understand. Their nest was on the island. And the lady that lives on the island told me she found her body. And she didn't know if she'd been shot or hit by a boat or whatever. But we called him Lonesome Larry. And he tried for 3 years and gave up. So now I hear no loons calling at night. But I have the eagles and I have my woodpeckers and my hummingbirds and my gardens and my really, really good neighbors. And that's the way I'd like it to stay. And so I feel if your family's coming up, if their kids are coming up, if the grandkids are coming up, they're still responsible for them and they make them behave. They tell you respect the neighbors, because they're family. That's different. I have no problem when I pass away if my son decides to buy my house and allow his mother-in-law and father-in-law to come up there, or eventually their grandchildren someday. My grandson's only 7, so it'll be a while. But that's family. And he would be in charge of telling them what they have to do to keep the peace in the neighborhood. And that's what I think should happen, that we don't let them rent to strangers. I understand it's good money. The people from Arizona were charging $600 a week for people to rent that cottage.
Okay,
And-
try to wrap it up. We got a lot
Yes,
of.
I'm finished, sir.
Yeah.
I just want to say, my opinion is
Oh, you
keep it
stated
in
it
the
out.
family. And if we have to have an ordinance that allows them, which I'm opposed to, please make sure that you have the rules really clear, and that they're enforced. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who'd like to come out next? So again, make sure you state your name and where you're from, and I'll start the timer.
Yep, my name is John Doyle. I'm from Midland, Michigan. I have been on this lake for 48 years. Mostly because of my grandfather who used to serve on this board. Recently passed, 2 years ago, I took over his house, purchased it, and as you know, property is not affordable for someone that's still working like me. I am a short-term rental owner. I do rent my house out. It subsidizes the income and I'm able to keep that. But I agree with having an ordinance and a set of rules to hold people accountable. I can't imagine having a bad renter and not being able to take care of that, to kick them out. I mean, that's a great story because they're not following the rules and I would not hesitate to do that. I have a short-term rental. I have a 5-star review and everyone that's been there has said it's amazing and my neighbors, enjoy it too. They get to see kids all the time, which they typically don't get to do. So we have kids running around all the time, but they follow all the rules. So I aspire to be a responsible owner and take care of my neighbors as well as the property itself. And this is my grandfather's house and I'm going to keep it in the condition that I want to and make sure that I'm having the utmost, quality of people coming into the house. So obviously I'm for them. And I think there is, I would like to see, this be established and have the rules. I don't want people parking on my property either. It is my house. I'll tell you, it is my house. I own it.
Yep.
So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Ron,
My name is Wayne Brooks. I'm a resident of Lyon Township. I'm here tonight because I believe this board is being asked to decide something far larger than a rental ordinance. Board is being asked whether residential neighborhoods in Lyon Township will remain residential neighborhoods or whether they will continue drifting towards commercial lodging districts. How would this board prevent a gas station, a bar, or a grocery store from establishing a business next to your house? How would you feel about that? What does R1 zoning mean if a business can operate in neighborhoods that are zoned residential? That is what this issue comes down to. No matter how short-term rentals are described, they operate like businesses with constant turnover, parties, noise, trash, parking problems, and most importantly, disruption for people who live next door. And in many cases, the owners do not even live in the area. If a home is being rented over and over for profit, like a lodging business, is that really the kind of use intended in an R1 zone district? Michigan courts have recognized that short-term rentals are a commercial type use, inconsistent with residential restrictions. If the courts recognize a distinction between ordinary residential use and transient commercial lodging, this board should not ignore it. Earlier this year, Gary Township decided that neighborhood integrity was worth protecting, and as part of its short-term rental ordinance, adopted a phase-out, reducing short-term rental licenses beginning in 2027 and eliminated them completely in 2030. If Gary's Township found neighborhood preservation important enough to phase out this type of use, what should Lyon Township do? Why should residents of Lyon Township feel that their neighborhoods are any less worthy of protection than neighborhoods across the lake in Garish Township? If this board allows short-term rentals to operate as businesses in R1 residential districts, despite serious legal questions raised in Michigan courts, then what does residential zoning really mean? You will have legitimized an illegal operation. When homes become revolving door businesses, neighborhoods stop being neighborhoods. Bottom line, they're no longer neighborhoods. And I don't understand why you think you have to allow it. You've all said that the overwhelming response was against short-term rentals, but yet you still think you should be working to accommodate that. R1 zoning was not an accident. It was a promise that was made to property owners in this township. Please keep that promise that Lyon Township and R1 made to us folks that live in Lyon Township. Thank you.
Thank you.
and who would like, sure, come on up.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Steve.
Good evening. My name,
Beth?
I only had, I think, 4. I didn't realize
Oh,
there
that's
were
fine.
5.
That's fine. I'll share.
Okay.
Here, pass it down.
My name is April Carnes. I'm a property manager and local contact for my daughter's STR here in Lyon Township. My daughter Erica grew up at Higgins Lake and is a local owner. She is not a corporation or an investment firm. She's a local who shares her home with others so they can enjoy the lake. We are a family-run rental and take pride in keeping her home a family-centered place. It is not a party house. It is my understanding from your comments at the last special meeting that as a police power ordinance, the board can bypass the planning committee's work and write the ordinance without input from others. As a zoning ordinance, you would need the planning committee's work and public comment. The current planning committee has allowed open and fair input from the community members to complete a balanced draft STR ordinance. It considers the STR ordinance owners and the surrounding neighbors. I feel that if you ask STR owners and the neighbors who have been part of this process, they would agree that even though no one got everything they'd like, it was a thoughtful, cooperative process, and the planning committee's draft ordinance they presented back to you, the board, is a good one. Whether you choose the power police ordinance or zoning ordinance, I would hope that you would choose to use the planning committee's draft ordinance. You as board members were elected to represent the Lyon Township residents. This includes all residents, property owners who provide short-term rentals and property owners who do not. If you choose to implement an ordinance based on your own priorities, then the will of the community is lost. Here are a few things to consider as you debate this. For the summer 2026 summer rentals, some have been booked for almost a year, and summer rentals are almost fully booked. These rentals have been based on the prior board's approved and implemented STR ordinance number 65. You as a board chose to end that. There is not sufficient time for finalizing a new ordinance. The application process back in place. Let STRs submit their application, get reviewed and approved in time for the summer of 2026. To rush this should not rush this and destroy the season. This would be devastating for this summer. Local jobs supporting STRs would be impacted negatively as well. I hope such a disruption is not your intent. Fees on STRs. Comments were made at the last meeting that basically if you charged enough on STR fees, you could pay for the township ordinance officer's salary. Lyon Township has paid for an ordinance officer in the past without such fees, and to try and overfee one segment of your community is neither fair nor justified. Septic inspections. STRs who applied for a license under the previous ordinance complied and had their septic inspected at the cost of $700. The board overturned the septic ordinance that was in place. You ran your election on overturning that. Now it seems that you want to blame all STRs for any and all problems with the lake. Year-round and summer residents have guests come all the time. You don't seem to worry about their overuse of the septic system, but somehow STRs always come up in every conversation as the only problems. We see homes adding huge additions. Do you question their older septic systems? No, you'd rather target STRs, in my view. STR complaints. You have no data to back up that STRs are the only homes causing noise, parking, general disruptions, overcrowding, and any other problems residents have issue with. Just today, I was at our rental, doing yard work, maintaining it, and I could not park in our parking spots because the neighbors next door were having construction done and their crew and their trailers were blocking how we could park. That needs to be addressed too. If I can't park in my neighbors, they should not park in mine. Day visitors to the area and guests of locals can and do cause the same issues. We live here. We see the holiday overparking in all the homes, all the areas, and throughout the summer. 4th of July, you can drive up West Higgins Lake. Every single house is overparked. People don't always want to put these complaints in writing, but they do exist. Find a way to acknowledge issues, track them, deal with the problem people direct, and don't lump all problems to one segment of the STRs. In closing, I ask, do not rush your decision on which way you decide to regulate STRs. Gather data, put procedures in place first before enacting and enforcing an ordinance. Be considerate of STR owners and others on both sides of the issue. Do not ruin the summer of 2026 rentals by rushing just to say you did something. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I got a couple questions for you. When you say, the summer of 2026, nothing's gonna happen until January 2027 for an ordinance. That's,
I don't know that.
yes, well,
I don't know that.
that'll be, that's where that will happen. And then as far as these, were you directing your comments about the septic towards us? Blaming STRs, this board, for the problem with the lake, with the septics from STRs? Because I've never said anything of the sort.
I have heard lots of discussion about short-term rentals having so many people. It's been,
On this board?
there were comments, a few comments at the last meeting. Most of the meetings I have been to have been at the planning commission, where there have been people from both sides. And it's been discussed that the number of people in the houses, the septics aren't meant for that.
I'm just not aware of that, that's all. The one,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be all that.
Brought up and talked about,
I,
yeah.
But the last board passed that for that reason, not this board. Let's wait for
Yeah,
that.
and I-
Okay.
if we had time tonight, we could go
Yeah.
more into it. I can say that in the short-term rental that we drafted, septic inspections were included, but it wasn't to single out short-term rentals. The septic ordinance for the lake is going to be the next thing that we're working on.
And as long as it's for the entire lake,
That's,
that's
That's a place where it has to be by law.
great.
thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Who else would like to come up and say something? Oh, thank you very
I'd
much.
like to write your copies back. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Right up, sir. Good to see you back in the neighborhood. I saw you walking the other day.
Ice fishing was terrible in Florida. Just a couple quick comments. The road to heaven is paved with great renters. Okay? And those aren't the people that cause the problems. It's the people who show up, who don't know the rules, who figure, well, I paid a lot of money to rent this property and I'm gonna have a good time and I'm gonna invite all my friends up. And this is where we get into the rub, because this township does not have what you call a stellar record on compliance. We don't, in fact, the township doesn't have a record of being in compliance with even their own ordinances on occasion, and even certain state requirements. I'll give you an example, and that is open burning. This township has had a history of open burning, leaving unattended things in the compost area in the past without having somebody there, as they're required to by state burning rules. So the time when you need to have somebody deal with a compliance problem with the renter is when nobody's available to do it. We don't have a compliance officer that goes around the weekends here and looks for all the leaf burning that's going on in neighborhoods. When the fireworks are blowing, you can call the sheriff or the state police, but they're not going to show up for something like that. That's happening all over the place, and yours might be worse than you think is reasonable. But nobody's going to show up, and nobody from the township is going to show up when people are over parking on Saturday night or Friday night. So it's great to have an ordinance which has these different requirements and says you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. But if you have no enforcement mechanism, if you have no compliance mechanism, then you really don't have an ordinance. You just have ongoing conflict for the minority of the renters who probably cause most of the problems. So before we get too entrenched in how we're gonna regulate this by all these little things here and there, if we don't have the willingness, the resources, the capacity to enforce it, I don't know why we would want to open this can of worms any further. And I think that needs to be considered at every step of how we consider whether to have an ordinance that looks like this or looks like that. I appreciate everybody's interest in maintaining the civility of our neighborhoods. I think that's really important. So I'm not sure what the compromise here is, or whether it's a compromise that will work perfectly, and in most cases it never does. But on the other hand, if you don't have a plan, you don't have an ordinance. And if there's no way to enforce it, I think we're just kind of whistling past the graveyard in a sense. Some communities regulate these so-called short-term rentals by how long is the minimum stay. I've seen places where for residential areas down south, for example, that they don't let short-term rentals come in there unless a short-term rental means at least 30 days. Other places have other different ways that they deal with it. But I think it's the turnover and the turnover that really creates the problems, because if you've got a new neighbor every 3 days during the high season, you know, your life is going to be very different here living at the lake in a lot of situations. I mean, there are people who are renting to families and friends, and they know the responsibilities. And you have owners who live close enough to do something about it if there's a problem. But we don't have any kind of a requirement that I'm aware of that you have to be even living in the state of Michigan. You could be living in Alaska and paying somebody in Traverse City to come over and clean your place or to manage it. And what do you do? What do you do with that? What kind of a program is that that's going to be effective? So I think we really need to focus on the practicality of it. And always keep that in mind, that we can have all these great regulations, but if there's no way to communicate those, if there's no way to deal with problems when they occur at the time that they occur, then I think we're kind of kidding ourselves. So that's basically what I had to say.
So I got a question for you, if you're done.
Yeah.
When you say we're not enforcing the current ordinances, which ones are you referring to?
Well, I mentioned
Compost?
I mentioned burning, for example.
You mentioned burning at the compost?
Well, they've burned at the compost in the past, even before you guys were here. And I've got there when the gate's locked, there's nobody there in the morning. There's a big smoldering heap of ashes where all that junk is burned. Now, I don't know, maybe when we burn down there now, if we're burning, maybe there's somebody watching that fire all night, and there has to be somebody observing on site.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean somebody who's on call, but somebody on site who's observing it and has some capacity to deal with the consequences of lighting the fire that big if it gets out of hand.
Yeah.
If it comes up or whatever.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
As far as any complaints, any ordinance complaints that come in, I mean, I, as much as anybody else in this board will tell you, the ordinance officer will follow up on that.
Which one?
Bruce.
No, but I'm not sure. I mean, it keeps on changing who's in charge. I don't.
No,
Yeah, sure.
And we
Yeah.
put a full-time ordinance officer on.
Yeah.
But he will absolutely follow up on anything that comes
So
in.
does he cover all the ordinances? Is he gonna do
Yeah.
the short-term rental?
He will be.
Is he on call? Is he gonna be looking around and smelling smoke and doing something about
I
it?
hope not. It's a complaint, and it's a written complaint, it'll be dealt with.
Yeah,
Fine.
the thing about it is, there's somebody who had asthma that was down past the Red Store area. And the people who have that wood lot, people were burning a lot of stuff. They just pretty much told him to kiss off a couple of years ago.
Okay, and we're drifting off a little bit, Phil, and
He asked the question
yes, you did.
and I'm responding to it.
Okay, so wrap it up.
That's all I've got.
Okay.
Okay.
From the fire department. Came back the next morning too.
Yeah.
It's hard to have somebody 24/7.
I think he's,
But he was there
he's,
with the truck when they burned.
let's do,
So.
Legitimate concerns, but I'm gonna ask that we stop that and get back to why we're here.
Okay,
Thank you.
I just have a quick comment, Phil, if that's okay, just in general. I've heard it a few times this evening now that there seems to be this misconception that there won't be, if we move on anything, an agent will have to be readily available within minutes of the rental. This isn't gonna be, they can't live in Traverse City and be in charge here. We're not gonna allow it. So this recourse that there won't be anywhere to go or there's nobody gonna be close enough to like take care of a problem, that's not gonna happen. I would never vote for that. Never. I think it's ridiculous, the idea that, oh, well, my agent lives in Clare. Well, by the time you get here, I'm dead.
There are
No, not gonna happen.
many things in the ordinance drafts that we are not gonna be able to talk about tonight because we don't have.
I'm just stating it because I've heard it at least 4 times now.
Yeah, anybody else like to
Yeah.
get up and make public comment here? Who's got their hand up further?
Nanette Gugamus, Lyon Township, full-time year-round resident. I had previously hand-delivered letters to the board sharing my negative firsthand experiences in opposition to short-term rentals. In addition to those experiences previously stated, I have additional information. I had to install a sign stating not to let your dog poop and pee in my yard. I've heard dogs bark for hours on end. Also, I had to install private property signs to try and keep strangers from accessing my property. I'm almost 70 years of age, and I have never lived in a home where these signs were necessary. I know some of these things may seem trivial, but it all adds up over time. It seems to constantly be one more brick on the load. Sometimes you have numerous days in a row of unwanted experiences from short-term rentals. The draft ordinance states in part under number 3D, dwelling unit. A dwelling unit shall not include an adult motel, bed and breakfast, cabin court, hotel, or motel, and lodging houses, as those terms are defined and regulated under the township zoning ordinance. Under number 3K, short-term rental, this does not include approved bed and breakfast establishments, hotels, motels, tenant housing, or campgrounds. Under section 6, regulations F, short-term units shall not include boarding, lodging, or rooming houses. I'm not clear on what establishments are or are not regulated by this draft ordinance. I believe a short-term ordinance should apply to any overnight stays that are located within R1 zoning. How many of these excluded temporary housing establishments are located in R1 zoning? And if there are establishments that are excluded from the draft ordinance in R1 zoning, the number of individuals available to stay there should be taken into consideration when allowing additional short-term rentals so that a neighborhood is not saturated with transit individuals. I do not see in the draft how complaints from neighbors are to be handled to the township about short-term rentals in this ordinance. I've heard the board previously state that a written ordinance complaint form must be made and signed, or a copy of a police report must be submitted to the township to verify that a problem exists. If these complaints are not handled anonymously, the township is creating a very hostile relationship amongst its neighbors. Clarification is needed on this. One last item. Camp Cronulla has approximately 400 homes/cottages. In their rules and regulations 4.21, renting of cottages is prohibited unless it is an approved post cottage. This veterans community is lucky to have the ability to not allow short-term rentals. I'm sure they have many good reasons for making this part of their rules and regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a quick comment for you on that, and that's partly because the state Supreme Court ruled that covenant and covenant deed restrictions take precedent. So anyone out there in an association where you pay fees to belong to that association, their rules, no matter what a township does, take precedence.
Yeah.
And that's like,
That's, I said they're very lucky.
it's exactly what that's about.
Create one big Lyon Township Association.
What, okay, one thing, again, trying to avoid getting into the details. The complaints that come here that are signed, they remain anonymous unless you end up at court. One of the purposes of that is that we try to get accurate information. And if action is taken down the road and that person wants to go to court and dispute what they were accused of, your name would come up then. But we're not putting names out there on the initial complaints. Who would like to speak next? John, come on up, sir.
John Barta, Lyon Township. My position on STRs is known by the board. I've taken the opportunity and the liberty in prior meetings to express that, and I don't really want to take too much time here because I do oppose STRs, and they destroy neighborhoods. We've heard a lot of stories today. They start that destruction, and I believe that if there's just never a good neighbor. STR can only be neutral, bad, or awful. And not everyone is quite as assertive as Steve Detmer. We do have little old ladies who have places who are, and they don't want to report. Steve doesn't necessarily want to report either. So I just think that STRs need to be eliminated. However, if STRs are, and I agree with Phil Robinson, and we need a plan. And we do, just because we don't want STRs does not mean we don't need an ordinance. And then that's really what I do want to speak to at this point. I believe that Lyon Township can effectively regulate short-term rentals using a hybrid approach. I would agree with Trustee Monet that is combining the zoning authority and police power. Using that technique reflects current legal realities in Michigan and the approach being adopted by other townships. So they are using both zoning and police power. And the reason, recent legal developments from the Michigan Supreme Court support treating STRs as commercial activity. We do know that, rather than purely residential use. That means that STRs can now be regulated like hotels, beds and breakfasts, and townships have clearer authority to restrict where they're going to be, require special approvals, and limit density. So that strengthens the zoning as the primary tool for controlling STRs. So I would agree that using zoning for that, but zoning alone is not enough. Because zoning does not effectively handle noise complaints, parking issues, trash, and nuisance. Enforcement through zoning is typically slower. So if you want to get something done, it's slower, it's legally intensive. And so that's why you need police power. They generally control health, safety, and welfare. And so, but police power cannot regulate land use. We know that. And so a hybrid solution, in my opinion, is the best choice. Zoning ordinance would be controlling the STRs that establishes the district permission spacing, how far apart they need to be, special use permits, and the police power controls how the STRs operate. Basically, you would need 2 coordinated ordinances to do that. And there are communities, townships in the state that are doing that. Crystal Lake is one that has a model. So if you looked at that, you could tell that. Also, Pittsfield Township downstate has got a combined model. And that is where many of the communities in the state are moving. So they're not using one or the other, they're using a combination of both. And an ordinance is even if STRs are being phased out. STRs cannot immediately be eliminated. We've heard that people have investments in property, and so you have to be sensitive to them. Some STRs may qualify as legal existing uses. And so how do you manage that? So I think that there is certainly a path forward using a combined hybrid approach, and I would support that process. I do think that whatever we do, if we don't have a way to enforce what's going on, it really is nonsensical. And I think that this board really needs to really approach the enforcement in a way that is like, are we really going to do this? And the idea of paying for an ordinance officer through that may be objectionable to some people, but I do think that that is a way to take care of some of those things. We've got one. Maybe we need a special STR ordinance officer on weekends who can cover and do some other things. But I think some creative thoughts on enforcement really need to be addressed. Just because there are going to be problems, and if they're allowed, and even if they're phased out, we need to allow them for a period of time while people have an opportunity to divest themselves of property. So that's all that I have to say.
I think that we will definitely, when it comes time to get, this is done, Hayden was gonna bring that to the board later date, but absolutely, the money we take in, we could use for a weekend ordinance officer specifically for STRs.
And I want to clarify too, let's make that very clear, because this is, April, to your concern too. This can't pay for the ordinance officer. The state made very clear, and I just checked again this morning, it is the limited amount necessary for administrative duties for this specific ordinance. And we may have to create a new line item specifically for the wages, administrative duties, planning commission or otherwise, just for this ordinance. It's not nilly-willy. You're not allowed to do that. So hope that eases some of the pain.
If we get that down the road, we'll be talking.
Yeah, that's what.
But that's kind of like
What?
Would be the way to go, would be
Absolutely.
yeah.
Great line. Yeah. Thank you, John.
You bet.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure it's clear that I do oppose STR.
I know.
Anybody else like to come up and make some comments?
One thing I'd like to say, most of you people who have been here know me, but I stand up because I get low back pain from sitting in these chairs.
It's not threatening.
Hell.
What happens, a matter of fact, when I standing up there, it's just because it makes my back, so.
Thank you for clearing that up. Come on up, Bruce.
Bruce Zigian, Lyon Township. Personally, I am for an ordinance. If we don't do something, I think it'll become helter skelter. But I really came to sit and say, we don't have an ordinance now, but we have a number of ordinances that covers, some of the things that people were talking about tonight. For instance, the dog, the fire, the parking, there's all ordinances against that. And as the ordinance officer, I want you to know, if you come into the township and tell me, I've been here 3 weeks, haven't had one complaint. Nobody has said a word, but I'm hearing it tonight. If you come into the township, I want everybody to know I will act on it. So, but there are a number, even though we don't have a short-term ordinance, there's a number of ordinances that cover certain areas of that can be enforced. And I just want everyone, and I want it on public record, that I will act.
Very good.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Bruce.
Give that guy a raise.
You did that.
Yeah. Give him a raise.
Okay, anybody else for public comment?
Yeah.
Sure, come on up.
Diane Hagel, Lyon Township, full-time resident. Thank you, Bruce, for introducing yourself. I work full-time Monday through Friday. I
I'd have to move a little closer to that.
work full-time.
That should be good.
I have 2 jobs. So for me to come into the township to voice my complaint is not gonna happen. Can I email you? Okay, that would be great. I have a short-term rental next to me. I bought my house 4 years ago. If I had known that that was a short-term rental, I never would have bought it. I don't even know the person who owns it. Never introduced themselves. I get woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm a heavy sleeper. I get woke up 2 o'clock in the morning because there's fireworks or campfires going off. I live in my house alone. I am not going to approach the motorcycle gang that's over there and tell them, I'm sorry, I'm really nervous about this. And I'm not going to approach them. I'm not going to call the police and file a complaint because our police officers have other duties to take care of. But if we can get some way that I can reach out to the sexton, I will file my complaints in the future. Thank you.
Just an FYI, I'm all about if it's there, video, and then give it to him the next day. Okay.
My jammies.
I own a night vision camera I can loan you. I've used it before. Okay.
Okay, so Bruce went to go get some of his cards, I believe.
Yes.
All right, who else would like to make a public comment? Come on up, Patty.
Patty Dennis, Lyon Township. I think it's pretty clear that most people are not in favor of the short-term rental. And it's because of the fact that, like you said, Trustee Detmer, you can have a great experience and you can have a horrible experience. And the problem is that you just don't know which you're going to get. That's the bottom line. You could have a great experience because the people really vet the people and they follow all the rules. And I don't think it'd be an issue. We wouldn't be having this discussion if everyone just was like this gentleman here with his renters, right? It's the other people that, and when you don't, so how do you manage that? I don't know. So I'm not really in favor, and I'm certainly not in favor of any kind of an ordinance that is unlimited, that doesn't have a specific number of how many are going to be, because people believe, whether it's right or wrong, that they can make a bunch of money buying a property and then renting it out. And if nothing really happens, then they continue to do that. And I don't know, you've got the experience of the people by you that don't really vet the people. So the bottom line is we can't control what those renters, how those renters are going to behave. That is the bottom line. And so I don't know how to solve that. I think are we regulating an existing problem, or are we trying to legitimize a business that should not exist in residential areas? And I think the goal should not be to make short-term rentals work better in residential neighborhoods, but to eventually eliminate them. Because it's so hard to control. That's what we've heard here tonight. All these things about, well, we have to have more regulations and more ordinance officers and more and more and more. And I'm just not sure what the benefit is. I think there's very serious concerns about public safety and emergency response. We already feel like we don't have enough of that around here to begin with, in terms of the sheriff, like how many times has people said on Friday or Saturday night, we call the sheriff because there's a problem. It's no guarantee that they're going to show up. So how can you, even if you put something in place and says it's illegal, but then you can't get anybody to respond to it, it just becomes really problematic. Our EMS, our fire department, we don't have enough for those people anyway. So I think enforcement is difficult. And I think it's costly. I think, like many of us, we come up here because of the lake, because it's a legacy, because we love it, not because it's a great business venture. And we certainly don't want to encourage other people to come up for that sole purpose. And so I think that it's important to protect our community character. I think we have to really think seriously about this. It's a legacy, not a business. And so the bottom line is, like I started, you don't know what you're going to get. And I don't know how you can regulate how you're going to get, how you can control that. And so I think you're setting yourself up for a potential problem. And there's a lot of really great renters, I'm sure. But we're not here about them. We're here because we have had experiences with not so great renters. So thank you.
Can I make a comment real quick, Patty? Question? Make it quick. I'm gonna make it quick. So I'm not even sure there's a middle ground. I put a lot of time into this, obviously, and I'm not even sure there is. But I do know what I feel like is coming down the pipe. I don't care if it's even 3 or 4 years from now. I don't believe after the $2 million of the 6% use tax that the state collected last year, they're gonna ever let that go. If there's not, I mean, if there's not strict regulation and they're not allowed at all, the amount of money for what this lake is now that the state parks, the state will never do it. So my question is, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot at all, because you know me, I love a good fight.
You gotta roll this.
Okay. So if the state of Michigan eventually does get off their butt, and I hope it's on record, they should be embarrassed for not doing anything yet for what we pay them to take care of our state and our people. Would the people be ready to come forth and put a fight against the state of Michigan for not protecting exactly what you're talking about? It's us right now, but when the state comes forward and says it's illegal to ban them, are there people going to get together and fight the state?
Yeah, we're way down the road there.
I'm just a thought.
Thank you.
You could get it.
Yeah, it's rhetorical at this
You
point.
have to try and move on.
Thank you, Patty.
Anybody else got a public comment they'd like to make tonight?
Yep.
Sure. No. State your name. Where are you from?
What's up, everybody? Brandon Walsh. I'm from Midland, Michigan, and I have a home just down the road here in Lyon Township. It's our second home. We use it as a cottage, and we also short-term rental. We're for short-term renting. We've been doing it for about 4 years and have not had one single complaint. We don't do it full-time, obviously, but quite a bit. It's not a moneymaker as far as it's not gonna make you rich, but it does help subsidize the bills, the taxes that go up every year, the insurances that go up every year, all that stuff. I mean, I'm for regulation on all that stuff, but I mean, we can't kid ourselves. Tourism is our economic engine that runs this around here, and it's been going on and on for decades. People renting cabins around here, so I understand the neighbors complaining and stuff and need to be heard and all that stuff. And I've never had a complaint, thank God. We have over 75 5-star reviews. We manage it ourselves. We love it. We use it a lot ourselves. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, sir. If we go that way, we need more of you and less of the others.
Yeah.
And that can happen. Anybody else got a public comment to make tonight?
I think we still got a break. Okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 5-minute break.
I'm John Harris, Lyon Township. I promise I'll be brief. I think you guys, the board, is responsible for the direction that our neighborhoods go. Neighborhoods evolve slowly, good or bad. But neighbors can change overnight. All it takes is a death in the family, job change, something in Mr. Burns' nice neighborhood of 8 cottages. I could have somebody has to sell out, the guy, whatever.
and you don't know what you're gonna get. I could write a book about good and bad renters. Next door. Right now, very, very lucky. I got great neighbors. But the direction this is going, I guess I'd sum up my thoughts. If I wanted to have a different neighbor every week, I'd sell out and travel. Go to bed, even if every single was great neighbors, great renters. I don't want a different neighbor every week, all summer. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
I'm one of his good neighbors too.
John, I believe.
All right, anybody else got a public comment for tonight? Have we landed on you, Mr. Bedoyan? I see you coming up slowly but surely here.
Cam Bedoyan Jr., resident, Lyon Township. Without regulation, let's say the board decides not to do anything at all. You're not going to have any regulation. Then you will have people that rent their cabins out, et cetera, et cetera. You have no say-so in it, no control, no nothing, no violations, nothing. Now, it could spread like cancer. And maybe an illustration would have been maybe from when I was a kid, burning leaves was the fun thing to do back in the day. But over the years, the township has changed where there's more senior citizens. So someone brought up the idea back in the teens about let's stop burning leaves because of asthma conditions, senior citizens, etc. So the board decided to stop burning leaves, okay, for health reasons. And it took a while, but it was accepted. You get spotty situations. Some people still burn leaves, but it took a while for everybody to come on board. Now, I want to just state some facts so I can not consume my 5 minutes. Updated 4/23 of 25. It says to all. This is pertaining to the Planning Commission. The Lyon Township Board is requesting that the Lyon Township Planning Commission consider the attached ordinance draft regarding short-term rentals. The Township Board asks you to particularly consider whether this ordinance draft addresses the issues of the previous short-term rental ordinance in which some areas were viewed as too limited, too restrictive, and not restrictive enough for the applicants. That was dated 4/23 of 25. The last draft that we submitted to the Township Board was 11/24 of 25. For the moment, going to change to, I think, Section 10. You all have a copy of the draft. It says penalties. And it's pretty explicit on the penalties that the ordinance officer and the Lyon Township Board can assess. I'm just saying there's a lot in here about parking, restrictions, notifications, notified inside the building what you can do and you can't do. It's all in here what you all had asked for. I don't know if a lot of you have read that. Now, the other thing. Let me just jump around here a little bit. The ordinance officer, the ordinance enforcement officer hereby authorized to enforce all ordinances of the township. The ordinance officer, enforcement officer's duties shall include the following: investigation of ordinance violations, issuing and servicing ordinances, violation notices, issuing and servicing appearance tickets, and authorized under public act, etc., etc., etc. It's in there. Also, we have what it states that the Planning Commission can add, subtract, alter, amend, adjust, et cetera, on anything that Lyon Township Board submits to the planning commission. But the planning commission can only do all those things, and then it's sent back to the township board for their approval. Whether they accept the recommendation from planning commission, it's in their hands, yes or no. And what some of the ladies said that during this time, of the meetings we've had, most of them were owners like yourself that were here. We obtained a lot of the ideas from those folks, and we worked with them on that because some of us were very new at this, so we incorporated a lot of those things. So they have a draft of that ordinance, but until they make the decision, but we made our drafts available at every planning commission. We kept everybody up to date on what's going on. If you had that draft, at least you have some ideas, and some of the things you've all been saying here tonight, it's in there. The other thing I wanted to mention is, it's off the subject, but July 4th parade. You guys need to know if you want to get on it or not. Don't dance around because it's going to be too late. Talked about it last year, mentioned about maybe getting some people together, etc. I just want to mention it now so you get heads up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Generating any support? I can try again. Any other public comments? Okay, hold it. If it's about this meeting, please use the mic, but you were already here once. Is it for Sam or this meeting?
About this meeting.
Okay, you were already here once.
All right, so yes or no?
No.
Okay.
Any other public comments from somebody who hasn't spoken already? We've done that before. I'd rather not. No, get up and speak. If we all could say what we wanted to say in rebuttal, we would be here for 3 days. If you have something you want to say, get up, Patty, and say it. Okay. Any other public comments from the people here? Yeah, come on.
I can talk that off. Mary Jane Dolan, Lyon Township resident, full-time, formerly part-time from 2010 until 2023, and now full-time for the last 3 years. I do not support short-term rentals for a lot of the reasons that that a lot of people have stated regarding not having full-time neighbors with issues. I do understand that people do have good experiences with short-term rentals. And if that were the case that we could all have them, then I could support that. But to buy a home, plan to live in a residential neighborhood, and without having any say into whether or not I have full-time residents for neighbors, I don't think that's what I signed up for in a residential zoned area. So if we were going to have short-term rentals, I would at least like to have the opportunity to weigh in on whether or not my neighbor is going to be a short-term rental. Many of them been around long enough that you probably know if they've been good neighbors or bad neighbors before, through zoning or police power, they're given the right to run a short-term rental next to me or next to everybody else. Is that possible within the two-tiered method, the zoning plus police powers that have been discussed?
We're not going to get into the particulars, sir.
There was a description given earlier, what the advantages or disadvantages of what that were, and that's all I'm asking. Would that be potentially within those? This has been discussed. Can I at least ask? I'm not going further into how many violations, all that good stuff, right? I'm just asking if that's a possibility within the zone plus police powers methodology.
We're not going to get into the particular. You asked for that and I supplied it. We have to make 2 decisions before we ever get into the particulars. You can take what you can glean from that.
Like for you to have a say, I'm confused.
If some,
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Yeah, it's fine.
it's fine.
That's not why we're here.
My position is I do not support having short-term rentals within the R1 area.
Yep, all right. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Yep.
Anybody else want to come on up and give a public comment?
Martha Barda from Lyon Township. Sam mentioned an 11/24/25 draft that the planning commission put together and submitted to the board. Is that 11/24/25 draft available on the website for for those of us who want more information on what it was?
Short answer is no, because it comes to us and we need to decide what we're gonna do, and that's the process we're in right now.
Okay, so it won't become available for the.
As he says, not available at their meeting.
At the meetings, but nothing available now.
We're in the process of working
That's
on what we're gonna do.
I think Sam might have some.
Sam, you have some?
I don't have it on hand. Thank you.
Okay.
You can
Thank you.
take Phone number and address.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other public comments tonight? Okay. Based on that, I'm gonna close the public comment section.
We have to formally close the hearing.
We're not done yet. As it was posted, after the public input, the township board may then choose to take action on proceeding in what manner with the short-term rental ordinance for Lyon Township. I'm gonna do this similar to a FOIA request, FOIA appeal request, and state a motion. And the motion will stand on its own, and this board will either approve it or not. Based on how that goes, there may be another motion, there may not. But this is where, after all this time, we need to, as a board, make some decisions. The first motion is that I will make a motion that the township board, I'll back up. I'll make a motion. If there's no second, it's not going any farther than that. I will make a motion that the township board continue to pursue the creation of a short-term rental ordinance for Lyon Township, Roscommon County, Michigan. Do I have a second?
I'm going to second for discussion.
Okay, that's what it's all about right there. So enter into the discussion and let's try and keep our time limits. Oops.
Time's up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. This board cannot vote during a public hearing. You must close the hearing under state statute and do it in the open session after the hearing. Public hearing versus voting, state of Michigan. Public hearings are for gathering input, while board voting occurs during the official business portion of the meeting after the hearing is closed.
I stand corrected. You are right.
So
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing on short-term rentals.
we'll second that.
You did it at 7:46.
Okay. Now that the meeting is closed.
All in favor?
I'm sorry, I'm in favor. Signify by saying that.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that meeting is closed.
Now let's vote.
I will make a motion that the township board continue to pursue the creation of a short-term rental ordinance for Lyon Township, Roscommon County, Michigan. I have a second on that one.
Second.
Okay, and any further discussion from the board?
Yes, because we are not in a special meeting as dictated by the Open Meetings Act, we should not be voting on it at this time. We should table this motion immediately and come back in a properly noticed special meeting for this vote.
Okay, is there any other comment from the board?
Yeah, we just add this out to our next agenda and
Absolutely, we can, if we table it now. Yep, absolutely.
stop all this.
It is not nonsense. It is the rules. It is the state of the state. No, but that's what you're going to usually.
Okay,
It's in my mouth, Timmy.
Maybe.
okay, so we're having discussion.
Yeah.
The motion is there. I'm hearing the input. Is there any other input from the board?
Yeah, I think we waited long enough to decide whether to go for or not with special meeting, not special meeting. We had a public hearing. We listened to a lot of input, a lot of good input. And I think the decision should be pretty easy to continue. I don't want to violate rules. I don't want to go to jail, but I'd like to make some progress here tonight.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Hops, you got anything to say before we continue?
No, it's just, I mean, if it's not, the only thing I have to say is that if it's not legal, that's an issue. If it's
Well,
legal,
the guidelines that I'm not even gonna answer. I'm doing what, our legal firm has suggested that we do. There's a lot of questions. Okay. Do you have any other comments from the board now?
I think we should wait till the next regular meeting.
Okay,
I second that, Mr. Detmer, or Trustee Detmer. Thank you.
well, we're gonna do it. So I need this because of.
Sure.
Okay, motion done. Or are there any other comments from, the board? Okay, hearing none on the motion that the,
I have one comment, sorry.
sure, go ahead.
Trustee Monet is stating this is not legal for us to do at this time, but our attorney is saying it is. Did we get clarification on that?
We had to post it 2 weeks ahead of time. I posted it in the
But
newspaper.
the wording. Is the wording correct or incorrect?
He said you can post 2 meetings in one posting and you can put it out there, and that's what I did.
And I will make a comment then for clarification. I just spoke to the state again this morning. This type of hearing does not require a publication in the local newspaper. It is not a decision towards an ordinance, to make an ordinance, or to pass an ordinance or a zoning ordinance. Therefore, the qualification for a publication is not necessary. It only takes, even in this book, it states an 18-hour notice for a special meeting. That was not done. That's all we needed for this.
So I've spent, I don't know, 10 years standing in court. And I hear attorneys on either side of whatever law, one arguing it's this way, one arguing it's that way. And they're all attorneys. I just say, let's just do it at the next meeting and get it done with and stop all this endless chatter that we don't need.
Well, I would like to say it's not endless chatter, because at the end of the day, if there's a vote that's not done procedurally correct, as I was warned this morning, the township can be sued. So I'm trying to protect the
Okay.
township and the people as well.
The only other additional comment is we went through this before the last time we posted something and it was not correct according to the way you wanted it. And the attorney said it was fine.
Okay.
So we've all made our comments.
Yep.
And we run through them to see whether they pass or they don't. Unless there's any other additional comments. Okay, on the motion that the township board continue to pursue the creation of a short-term rental ordinance for Lyon Township, Roscommon County, Michigan. Could we have a roll call, please, Clerk Kern?
Certainly. Treasurer Huff,
Yes.
Clerk Kern, yes. Trustee Monet,
No.
Trustee Detmer,
No,
Supervisor Bertrand,
Yes,
3-2.
the motion carries. Due to the fact that the motion carried, make another one with the same intent to have, comments. We may not all agree. That's why it's a motion. I'll make a motion that in pursuing a short-term rental ordinance for Lyon Township, Roscommon County, Michigan, that the township do so by creating the short-term rental as a police power ordinance. Is there a second for that motion?
For discussion, yes. Or a second, excuse me.
Yep, there we go. Okay, so board discussion on that.
Absolutely not. As I just stated earlier, we are not in that. We should not be doing this right now. This is not a special meeting. The state has made it very clear, and I'm protecting you. This isn't about me. I don't have a short-term rental ordinance next to me. If we're going to do this, this is such a hot topic. I don't care how many people shake their head out there. I want this done the right way and by the book. A special meeting by state standards and statute was not legally called. Therefore, You cannot vote for something outside of the hearing if we're not in open session. We are not in an open session because a special meeting was not called. We would be violating the Open Meetings Act right now, and I'm telling you all that. I don't care what the attorney says because we have never had the attorney opinion. This is Supervisor Bertrand's opinion. I'm trying to protect the integrity of the process and the rights of due process for the people, and I won't stand for anything less on this because it's not fair and it's not right.
Thanks, sir. Is there any other comments from the board
You
members?
think it's all, so the next meeting's only 2 weeks away, and I don't think it's gonna be an earth-shattering thing if we just wait 2 weeks and have it done that day. So I just say that my suggestion is we wait till the next scheduled meeting, put it on there and get rolling.
I think we're just voting on police power, were we not? Wasn't that your wording?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure of that.
And this is a format that's used to get out of the weeds.
Hmm.
You know, these are not necessarily. This is a format, same as FOIA appeals. You just run through them.
At a properly posted meeting.
I appreciate your concerns. Any other comments from the board on the motion as stated? Okay, hearing none, I will make repeat the motion that in pursuing a short-term rental ordinance for Lyon Township, Roscommon County, Michigan, the township do so by creating a short-term rental as a police power ordinance. So if we have a roll call on that, please click Kern.
Sure. Trustee Monet.
No.
Let me see, what is it? Trustee Detmer.
No,
Treasurer Hunt.
No.
Clerk Kern, no. Supervisor Bertrand.
In the content that it is, I would vote yes. Okay, so that motion fails on the floor. So I would entertain a motion then that the short-term rental public hearing then be closed.
I make the motion.
We already closed it.
Yeah, we close it,
Yeah.
so again, for the record. Okay, we have a second to close it. Is there any discussion on that from the board? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of closing this short-term rental public hearing signify by saying aye.
And I.
Okay, opposed, the same. Okay, so I have been advised we should take a 5-minute break. The next one is probably not going to be that long, but enjoy your break. Don't get into any arguments out there. It's almost enough time to blaze too.
I did.
It's a nicotine level.
Not that I should after surgery, for God's sakes. But oh well.
Okay. So per the posting, we will now move on to the second public hearing. I don't know if anybody new came or not. We can do it in the same order, do the call order first, and then we'll do the pledge.
Did you that again?
Different meeting, yes, so. For the record,
8-11.
8-11. So what do we got for call to order? We'll do it the same way as the first one.
Do you want another roll call?
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Monet.
Here.
Trustee Detmer. Treasurer Hop.
Here.
Supervisor Bertrand.
Here.
And Clerk Kern here.
Okay, let's do the pledge again in case anybody knew. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming or hanging around. I'm going to make a motion that we proceed with the public hearing posting to gather resident input on a potential fertilizer setback distance along Higgins Lake and its connecting waterways in Lyon Township, Roscommon, Michigan. Should have said, potential fertilizer setback distance ordinance along Higgins Lake and its connecting waterways in Lyon Township, Roscommon, Michigan. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion with the board? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same.
Nay.
Okay, the motion carries 4-1. Again, township board comments will be first, then public comments will be allowed. Let me read this. This was the second part of what our attorney had sent us besides the short-term rental. Regarding fertilizers, I am not aware of any ordinance about it, but I have asked around my office and we'll see if anybody else knows. I would guess per my last email that we are probably restricted by the Right to Farm Act and Environmental Protection Act. Those likely say the rules at the state level and we can't contradict those. I do know I saw a couple online. That's his initial answer. We're here to give comments from the board and then hear public input on the concept of having a fertilizer application restriction for the lakeshore and connecting waterways for Higgins Lake ordinance possibility. So for board comments, who would like to open up here?
Well, I have something to say, but I can hold off. Well, thank you all for being here again. Yeah, I don't know what we're doing here with this. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I'll tell you why from my perspective. At the end of the day, just what I stated earlier, with the unfairness of N245 tanks from the prior board's septic ordinance that regulated and basically zoned an area, and it wasn't a uniform municipal-wide ordinance. Here we are again, and then we're going to try to pass something that says it's only for basically lakefront owners. I don't agree with it at all without a setback and significant scientific data that shows who's actually causing a problem. It would be no more fair than it was last time than it would be this time to try to impose an ordinance for a select few when we all know now that police powers have to be uniform across the township. I've said this before, prior boards, and I live by it. And this is in lay terms. The rule of Hitchens razor. That can be that which can be asserted without evidence can be easily dismissed without evidence. The person making the assertion must provide the burden of proof. To me, there's absolutely no proof set in front of me to make a decision on such a thing that says only lakefront homes are a contributing factor to the lake and problems when we tried to address this before and we said there wasn't a problem with the lake. I don't like it. I don't think it's fair and I don't think it's justified.
Thank you, sir. From my position, the septic inspections showed the opposite of what the sewer proposal expected. I think it's pushing over 700 now. I don't know if there was a dozen complete failures, and when you start talking about trying to modify them, that really didn't come into play as much as is the system working. I recently got some information that no, I'm not going to go there. When we were going through this before, part of the issue was the sewers are killing the lake. We went through all of that, but there's a separate issue on where the green slime is on the rocks along the shorelines. I put waders on 2 years in a row and did some looking around for the floating algae benthos. And I did notice that there was more green stuff in front of lawns. it's a simple concept to understand that if you have a septic system and it drains into the ground, it's going to remove some of the nutrients as opposed to right next to the shoreline of the water where things may, on a heavy rain, may run right off. I don't dispute Mr. Monet saying all of, if you address the whole big picture, it might be a little bit different. The only reason that we're doing this tonight is to get some public input on whether, if we were going to pursue this, there's probably a legal way to chase it down. I'm here to listen to whether people think this is a concern. If the proof is not really there, and it isn't, that the nutrient level is rising in that lake and it's actually been the same for 23 years now, or close to the same, then why is all the green slime along the rocks and along the shore? So it's kind of a general concept on my view to see whether people would support that we kind of chase this down. I've heard options. I saw one at 25. I've heard of 30. Waterford Township has one. I didn't get into detail. I asked our attorney first, and that was his answer. As far as my comments, that's all I got.
I'd like to make one more quick comment about this. People who are here this evening may remember that. Okay. So, sorry.
All right.
Clerk,
My comment, there's only 9 houses on my block, and all of us had determined we weren't gonna use fertilizer. It was nothing to do with the stuff in the lake. We heard that was a possibility we were contributing to something. So they use fertilizer up on the roadside, on our little road. We don't use it on the lakeside. It was that simple. And the vote was 8-1 until the other guy said, I'm not gonna be the only one, so it's 9-0. We don't use fertilizer over there. It's just one little street. I'm done. Kevin, nothing?
No. Anybody else
If not, then.
round one before we go back to round two?
I ran for township office for 2 things. The abusive septic ordinance and the short-term rental ordinance. Those are the 2 things that I voted on. I think those are the 2 most pressing things affecting this township right now. I'm tired of all these shotgun approaches to oak wilt and skating rinks and just all this other stuff. I'd just like to concentrate on those 2 things, get those done, and then do some other things. We're having all these different meetings, all this different stuff's going on. I would just as soon get the big topics that we ran on taken care of, and then we can carry on business there.
Thank you, sir.
Now it's Tim again.
You get around?
yes, I do. Thank you. Anyway, people that are here this evening that would remember this from prior meetings, even dating back, a couple of years ago, is I think what would be very fair and reasonable, and I proposed this before. When I was a barber for 30 years, I got to meet many, many interesting people. And one of the gentlemen I met, he is now one of the state's leading experts on basically environmental, control for water. And I had proposed before that in conjunction with Garish, if possible, that we put together a task force. And this is exactly what he does. Him and his team go to lakes, they get out in their boats, they see where grass is too green on someone's lawn. They look at the overgrowth, algae or otherwise on the local rocks, and they test the water on the spot. Based on those test results and the levels, they will go to the homeowners and talk to them and turn reports into the township. And there's a couple other different agencies, but they are vested with those rights. And I think that would be a very, very reasonable and responsible choice to determine where there may be extra, excess phosphates, nitrates, or otherwise entering the lake from over-fertilization near the lakefront.
Okay, round 2 for me, when we discussed this before during what I call the sewer wars, fertilizer, there was a kind of a expected ban from the legislature of phosphates in fertilizer. I started checking into that, checked into True Green, how much of phosphates in it. It's super secret. They won't give you that information. Then I found out they don't have to not put phosphates in it. Then one guy did finally, he said, look, if we pull the phosphates, we just double down on the nitrates. Nitrates feed the weeds. That's the same thing in the lake that, you know, the complaints about the septic system is the nitrates. The phosphates have actually gone down in the lake.
Yep.
But the thing is a nitrate is a nitrate is a nitrate. So if you're going to chase all the septic systems around, but then you're going to throw fertilizer right next to the lake, it's still nitrates. People have this concept that, oh, well, it's safe now. It's still nitrates. It's still a feeding mechanism for plants. The interesting thing, algae, the green slime, if there's weed killer in the fertilizer, the weed killer kills all the leaf plants, all the leaf weeds that compete with the algae. So if you have weed killer in your fertilizer and then you have green stuff floating around down on the edge of the water, if any of the small plants could have grown, they would have competed with the algae, even feed on. So not only is it nitrates, we are eliminating the nitrates, the algae competition if you have weed killer. I'm not 100% sold on any of this. Somebody asked me to throw it in here and I did. So unless anybody else on the board has a comment, I'd like to hear some ideas from what you people think. Going once? Yes, open it up to public comment, yeah.
Patty Dobrowski, Lyon Township. It's my understanding that currently the Health of Higgins Lake organization is working closely with the Higgins Lake Foundation on this specific issue. So it's my sincere belief that this poses a great opportunity for not only you as a board, but for us as residents to demonstrate a willingness to work together with these organizations. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. These organizations are made up of dozens of dedicated volunteers, many of whom have professional expertise. I would say right now, unfortunately, Lyon Township has a reputation in the community of not being willing to work with the other half of the lake, Cary Township. I personally lived in both townships. I grew up here. It's really important to me that you consider taking a giant step back. Maybe one of you be willing, who has a special interest in this area, to reach out. I'd start with the Health of Higgins Lake and say, hey, is there a way that we can work together on this issue? Let's not get the cart before the horse. Other people have been working on this for a while. We all live in this lake community together. Can't we please start playing nice in the sandbox? Thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
Thanks, Patty. Anybody else got a public comment about this? Come on up.
Ed Taylor, Pines Township. So I'm probably the bad guy here. I like a green lawn. Okay?
You're not,
Right? We bought our house up here 10, 15 years ago. We demoed it, put a new house in. We have about 105 foot of lakefront. We have a seawall. We have part of the seawall for the ducks and the geese to climb up on. And then we have the conventional seawall with a sidewalk on top of it. We have about probably from the water to the back to the edge of the lawn where it's groomed and everything like that, about 6-8 feet. Okay. I'm very conscientious of my environment. I got grandkids. We enjoy the property for what we use it for. We have about a 105 by 102 front lawn, nice and green. It's got a 4-to-1 slope. In case you don't know what a 4-to-1 slope is, a 24 by 24 garage and the roof is a 4-to-1 slope. Okay. It's hard to maintain. A good question you asked, how do you maintain sod on sand? Well, I'm in the excavating business and I brought up a bunch of good soil from downstate. And then I brought in sod. Okay. I put in an irrigation system. I worked with True Green. Okay. So my education and my performance and what I got is lovely. It's pretty. Okay. And I work with a Healthy Lake Association that's here. I've asked questions and I'm very interested into it because I do like the lake. I got my grandkids coming here and I plan on being here for a very long time. Now, I do have some thoughts and I posed a question to these people and we're near Bear Creek. Okay. And I'd like to know the sampling that come out of that because it's just upstream from my house. Okay. In the spring, you can go down there about any time right now. There's such a water coming in and it's got a, I call it a rust color. And it comes out from our shoreline about 50 yards. Okay. And depending on the wind, it'll blow down, I don't know, 4 or 5 houses or so. Anticipates out. Okay. Now, talking to the association there, my knowledge is, and they've sent me samples of the lake and this kind of stuff, historically, also that they sampled Cut River. Now, John Davis, I seen him the other day, and pictures and stuff like that, that was pretty cool. But I'd certainly like to know what's happening in the Bear Lake because of the coloration. Now, last summer, which I've never seen it before in the last 10 years we've been here, there was a slime. I don't know if you guys seen it or not, but it was right in front of us. It was about 10, 15 feet in front of our shoreline. And it comes from that area. Okay. So I think we have a lot of activities that maybe we're not addressing from some of our streams and not necessarily is it all our green grass. Okay. So, but my biggest thing is soil erosion and I take care of the road end. Okay. And I've had the road commission and talked to them about it. Okay. And got their blessings that I can go ahead and take care of it. Because without that, I think you can walk down any road end and see that the erosion is bad. Okay. And our erosion is I went and I put the silt fence in and I put everything and seeded it and keep the green grass. Okay. But I think we got erosion issues if we don't do something. So I use True Green. I'm very comfortable with them as opposed to my own ignorance of how to apply it. Okay. And I'm thinking if I needed to supply what is required for me to keep my green grass, I'd be more than happy to call it True Green and submit that. And if there's a setback, I'm not sure I want 500 feet because then that takes my whole property out. I own 105 by 230. So 500 feet is a big stretch. So, I guess that's about the last thing I got. And I wanted to bring in my card to show you my composting.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, you remember? But I just want to make sure that I show my composting card. I'm sure we're going to want her ID, right?
Yeah, Chris will be happy. I have one question though. What do you, Little Creek, I'm familiar with Big Creek.
Green Creek, I'm sorry.
Is it Big? Now I know what you're talking about.
I had one question for you. You asked True Green, for an MSDSC, do you think they would give you one? I don't know why they wouldn't. Yeah, if you could just say, hey, I'm kind of curious what you guys are. Yeah, ask them if they've got something, I would think, on that.
I mean, for the content of what
Yes.
they have secret.
Well, I think they have to give it to you.
Okay.
I would ask and see what they say. Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Do you not understand what that brown stuff is that comes from Big Creek? I honestly don't. I'm sorry. Those are putrefied leaves. That that's one goes to hide them in place miles to the west.
So, we asked the question, let me read a little bit.
Okay, we gotta go quick, go quick.
Yeah.
Well, you're not anymore, but.
The thing is important. I worked on intense livestock operation. Very large there. Large. 5,000 minutes there. You have 4 IL. Thing contributes to that. Talk about the fight with phosphorus and nitrogen. That's, I get that.
What do you mean by ILO?
Intense livestock operation. Big dairy, big hog farm.
Not out of Heidemann Marsh, we don't.
I think you go west out by
Yeah.
the city and Morristown.
That's all Muskegon River watershed.
This way, isn't it?
No.
I think these days have been pretty statements.
Heidemann Marsh is pretty much it. Yeah. Anyway, thanks. Yeah. Any other public comments on, what this public hearing is? Come on. Remind me never to do 2 public hearings.
Yeah.
Patty Dennis, Lyon Township. I have to agree with most everything that Timothy said. I think that we don't have enough information. I think it should be a uniform ordinance. I would absolutely be opposed to a certain yardage for lakefront owners because I don't think that it would cover the huge watershed that's underneath the boundaries of Higgins Lake. And so if you believe in gravity, anybody that would be fertilizing anywhere within the watershed would be contributing. It eventually gets there. And so I would be opposed to a 500 yard or whatever we're talking about.
If I said young, I didn't mean it.
Regardless, number is irrelevant because of the watershed around the lake. I also agreed with Patty's comment about working together. It's ridiculous that we're not. The 2 townships are not working together because it is one lake. And if I had my way, we would have only 1 township. We would not have 2 because of this reason. The other thing I want to mention, which I know, Paul, you're not going to believe anything I say, but I'm going to put it on public record, is back when we were working on a sewer, one of the documents that we had was by a company called Limnatech. And they were hired by the Higgins Lake Land Conservancy to look at the various factors that could be contributing to increased phosphorus and chemicals and things that are bad for the lake. And I'm sorry, I didn't think to bring it with me, but if I recall, the fertilizer was evaluated, and this was an independent research group, was like, I don't know, 1 to 3% was thought to contribute, whereas failing septics and all those other things was a lot more. And so if we're going to spend our time on what we think are the things that are impacting the health of our beautiful lake, we need to do the big bang for our buck, okay? And it's not fertilizers. So, I mean, not that I'm saying that we shouldn't consider something. I'm not saying that, but I don't like what is being proposed or talking about.
I have a quick comment, if I may. Thank you, Christian, just real quick. Everyone knows I love to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to play it right now. No disrespect to you, sir, whatsoever. So if we're looking, because all things little lead up to bigger things.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, for me, it's just a personal thing. I wouldn't be fertilizing if I were on the lake, but that is me. Is there ever a justification if you're on the water to fertilize if you know it contributes even 2%? Okay.
In my opinion, I mean,
No disrespect. What's none? To each their own. I like science.
back in the day before I got involved in all of this, fertilized my lawn, not understanding anything about a watershed, septics, and or all the above. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Fanny. I'll listen to this as briefly as I can. The Huron Pine study is the one you're talking about. No, Huron Pines was the independent, Limnatech did a review of the Huron Pines study. So when you're talking the percentage of the fertilizer in there being so low, they had a math error of 10% on their percentage of septic. And it was pretty much, the whole thing was debunked on the fact that their whole estimate on how much the septic impact was on the lake was off by a ungodly factor. So if you take that and you reduce it to where it should have been, that puts 1 to 3% in fertilizer in a whole different perspective. Okay. Then we agree to disagree. Thank you. Any other comments on this? Come on up, Dan.
Dan Richardson, Lyon Township, and I am in agreement with putting in a fertilizer ban. My preference would be the whole township, but if that can't be done, I'm in favor of 500 feet. And I am right on the lake, so that would impact me, but I don't fertilize anyways right now. And anything that can be done to help the lake, I'm in favor of. And if it's only 3 or 4%, well, that makes the lake 3 or 4, potentially makes the lake 3 or 4% better. And the lake, in my estimation, is much worse than what it was when I was a kid growing up here. I live on Samoset, the rocky part of Samoset. And when I was a kid growing up, it was not slime and nastiness on the rocks. Rocks were clean. Nowadays, the rocks are slime, and so something needs to be done for the lake. Sewers is the best way. This helps. A fertilizer ban would help. Doing something on the road ends to prevent the huge amount of erosion that comes down on the road ends, that would help. As far as the fertilizer is concerned, anything that makes the grass grow is going to make the weeds in the lake grow. And I mean, that's anecdotally, I don't have data that shows that, but that's my opinion. So anything that can be done to save the lake, I'm in favor of. I also am in agreement with both Patties. This township needs to work with Garish Township and the Health of Human Lakes.
Yeah, this is the third time I've heard that. Have you guys ever thought of having Garish say, why don't you guys work with Lyon? Have you ever brought that up? I'm just curious. You bring it up to Garish? I mean,
Yeah, they're beating down our door to talk to us.
I would be open to sitting and eating.
I'm not going to defend him, but Garish has actually publicly stated, we're not sure what Lyon wants to do or what to do, but they have extended an olive branch before. So I just want it on record because I've even spoken to Brian.
No, you're right.
Yeah. So for the record, yes, it has been out there. Maybe not to the board officially. Maybe no one's come here, but that's me.
Do you remember when Tim O'Rourke came here and did his spiel on the road ends?
Yeah.
And started trying to tell us what we must do and raised his voice and swore at us. And Steve said, we don't want another glue on.
Yep.
I don't forget those things. I would work with people who will do studies that are not full of must, likely attributed to, possibly attributed to, could be coordinated with. I'm all about cause and effect. Prove it. When Higgins Lake, and I told them this, when you start dealing with cause and effect stuff, I'll. But if you're going to do the conjecture and the assumptions, not interested. Now that's only me.
So you're saying that you don't think that the rocks were 50 years ago were clean and now they're not?
I'm saying in the 50s, the rocks are different. The sand is different. The facts are the nutrient level is the same. The phosphorus level is down. There is no real proof that it's septic systems. The lake is spring fed. Gravity does not work necessarily that way. If gravity goes down on spring fed, there's homes that are back from the waterfront. That water in the aquifer heads east and southeast. That's some facts.
50 years ago, there weren't any zebra mussels. 50 years ago, there wasn't that creeping weed that we've got that's invading our lake now and stuff. There's a lot of
Brings the fin.
there's a lot of things that have happened to the lake.
Thank you, Ben.
How about Dan, we get together and put together a formal resolution and force the state to finally do something to not let 25,000 people on our lake during a holiday peeing and doing all their business in our lake. How about that? I'm saying it's true. We all know it's true. Nobody wants to speak. I know. I know.
Anyway, any other comments?
I'm all for it. I need a cocktail, a big drink.
Yeah, my name's Joe Smith. As far as the fertilizer, as far as the fertilizer ban, I'm not gonna say anything about anything else because I don't always agree with everything you guys say, but as far as the fertilizer ban goes, you know what? I think there's been enough discussion about that people feel it's gonna work or it's not gonna work. And I think that you eliminate one of those issues, then, you know, at least somebody's gonna say, okay, it didn't make a difference. Okay, or it did. And so what's the next thing? Okay. And that's taking the low stuff instead of the low hanging fruit, right? That's not taking low hanging fruit, which is what we should be working on. But and it kind of goes to Steve Detmer's point that, you know, you guys need to be working on the stuff that really makes a difference. But since you're asking about a fertilizer ban, I got an opinion on that, and here we go. I do support one. Okay, but the core problem that I see is that lakefront using the lakefront language is not a reliable regulatory standard. Okay, that's not going to flow anywhere. You're going to have you got to use feet. That's a state standard. There's a state regulation right now. It's 15 feet away from a body of water, and so you're going to have to use feet as a measure. And typically, you know, if you were the tool that you guys are using couldn't find any examples, I think you need to find another alternative. There's a lot of them out there with a lot of different townships, particularly they have lakes in. So anyway, using a lakefront is not a reliable regulatory standard. It's a legal description, not an environmental one. That variability makes it a poor proxy for any kind of environmental impact analysis. It provides, if you use lakefront, it's unequal treatment and it makes you legally vulnerable. If you regulate only lakefront lots, a 300-foot deep lakefront parcel is regulated across its entire depth. A non-lakefront parcel 10 feet from a tributary or wetland may not be regulated at all. That creates arbitrary distinctions between similarly situated properties, which is a potential equal protection challenge. So it's not going to fly. It's just not going to fly. There's a lot of lot depth inconsistency that creates a lot of irrational outcomes. It's not proportional to environmental impact, and that's going to invite claims of what's called regulatory overreach. So I would highly recommend that you guys don't use the lakefront as a measure, that you need to come off 100 feet, 200 feet, 500 yards, you know, that typically, what I have read is that most people go no more than 100 feet on a setback. Anywhere, anything beyond that is really pretty difficult to enforce unless there's a slope with slopes that or wetlands nearby. The setbacks are a lot further, and that's what happens with Eagle and a lot of the other stuff. So, bottom line is that using a lakefront lot as a regulatory trigger is scientifically weak. It doesn't reflect true runoff behavior. It's legally vulnerable, and it's inconsistent with what's happening with Michigan practice in the state. So while I do support a ban, I think that it's probably not going to make the biggest effect that you're looking for. But if we eliminate one more of those factors that we're all disagreeing about, then maybe we can agree on something.
Well said.
What did you say? You were Joe Smith? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wrong. I've been an avid boater, San Bernardino and Higgins Lake. I've been an avid boater since I was 14. And I remember the lake since then when I had a boat. I've had 3 boats in my lifetime, so I'm an avid boater. I see a lot of green around the shoreline. I don't know if you are aware of the fact that there are some people that have irrigation systems that they're using the lake to irrigate their lawns. I cannot remember when you mentioned Huron Pines, but it was some time ago. It was mentioned that some group can go out and do a study and go to each home and check things out, something along the line what you said.
Absolutely.
And they would find that those are not, that I know of per the road commission, not allowable because, for instance, and I'm just using Samoset because I know of a few of them, that since they don't really own that land, so to speak, they don't pay taxes, but they can still utilize it. But if they're using it and irrigating their grass, then you sort of wonder why it's greener than most. And I see this boating. And the other thing, I think we all know this, that when fall comes around, leaves fall, get on your driveway, you see a stain. Well, when you see them out on the lake, it leaves a discoloration also. And the other thing that's not been mentioned, I said I was an avid boater. When you incorporate the North State Park, the South State Park, weekends, boating, a lot of boats are on the water. Doing what? Operate on what kind of fuel? And oil. You see a lot more of that now than ever before. You go to the West Launch, for instance, it's seen right there at the shoreline. We have to be cognizant of the fact that that's in abundance as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has any adverse effect on the rocks and the slime and stuff like that. But Mother Nature has a way of cleaning the lake out. Sometimes I remember, Steve, some time ago, somebody asked me there was some sort of discoloration. I said, well, I think Mother Nature has a way that the water will cleanse itself. And after a few weeks, it went away. I don't know what it was, but watch and see, it went away. So Mother Nature plays an act on this too. The environment's changed a lot over the years. You know, like you're talking about the slime on the rocks and stuff. So there's a lot of things that years ago that didn't happen. Dan was right. We never saw that stuff. But I remember back in the day, there was all kinds of weeds out there by the shoreline. We used to pick those weeds up and pull them and throw them as spears. And that's how they were eradicated. And those weeds I'm talking about are out there by the island. You see some by the island still, but back where we live, there was an abundance, if you remember. There were plenty of weeds, but they're gone. So things have changed a lot. So look at the environment and all the and the gas and the fuel and so forth. Thank you.
No, Sam, I was curious on when you say people water their grass from the lake.
Mhm.
And I didn't think that was legal to do until I talked to the DNR and it is absolutely legal. I couldn't believe it.
Well,
I was shocked when I'm like, can you imagine if everybody on this lake decided to water their grass? How low the lake level would be?
So that's what happened.
On the other,
Yes, it would.
okay, on the flip side, Kevin, Green Commission. Yeah, if they own that property. If they own that property,
Yes.
they're paying taxes on that property. If they don't, now the road commission is saying, wait a minute. We let them use their winter, summer equipment out there between the road and the water, that's fine. But that's road right away property, so to speak, because they don't own that. They're not paying taxes. What that's right. Talking about when you look by and see why their grass is greener.
No, yeah, no, I was just bringing up the watering factor, which I believe the lake was down 2 feet last year, if I'm not mistaken.
That was the water right there. You took it.
So when you say it doesn't go, does this make a difference?
Yeah.
Really.
That's what you asked.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments on the fertilizer aspect? Come on up.
John Davis, Lyon Township. Sorry, Sam, I know you wanted to be last, but I beat you to that.
Be my guest. I'm gonna.
I'll try to be brief, but first I wanted to explain, as best I could to Taylor about the, color of the water coming out of the Big Creek, Little Creek. And the third creek is the infamous North Creek that suddenly appeared out of nowhere and got a washout in the road, alongside, Camp Cornelia there. What is that? Great road, right in the middle of the road. Washout this big.
Michigan.
Michigan Boulevard, yeah. And on the south side, it's flat. It's like, well, wait a minute, where's it then on the lakeside? There's a culvert down there, just roaring out. Well, as you go upstream far enough, get on the other side of Old 27, you'll see that little creek, just like Big and Little Creek, are draining the Heidelman Marsh. And that tea-colored water is from tannin, from the cedar trees. If you take your boat down the Muskegon and run up into the dead stream, you'll see that the dead stream looks the same way. So take a couple of it, looks like tea. The Swanee River down in Florida, in South Georgia, looks the same. Only there it's because of the cypress, I'm told.
Provident Falls.
Pardon?
Provident Falls is tea colored. It's from the tannins.
That swamp up there to the west of it. Back when the sewer thing got going, I was in favor of the sewer. I'm fortunate enough to live on the lake. And I thought, no, it makes sense. Those guys on the lake should be maybe more responsible, and yeah, let's get a sewer going. 50 years ago, when I got out of the Army, I thought they got the sewer around Houghton Lake, and a lot of people around Higgins at that time said, geez, no, we should get it, but for whatever reason, I don't know why we didn't get it. I was too busy chasing girls around pool table and stuff like that, so I
think I saw you.
Anyway, during this project, I learned about this, the soil we have and so on, and I learned about this thing that they call gravity. And then it's like, I guess we all know that it's what keeps us from floating up in the air. But gravity pulls things pretty much straight towards the center of the earth. Us, cars, sand, water, everything, till it hits something that makes it go one way or another. Like I think in the terms of our area here, it goes straight down till it hits a layer of clay. And then depending on how the Lord laid that layer of clay down, it might go east, west, north, or south. I'm surprised to hear you say that our subsurface water goes to the east and south.
East and southeast.
I am, if that's true, then where does the water in Higgins Lake come from?
Springfield and drainage. What I'm saying is there's a surface water and then there's an aquifer underneath.
Yes.
The aquifer underneath, it's slowly but surely moving south and southeast.
Well, I remember at a lecture over at Garrish Township, a guy showed us a map of the Higgins Lake watershed. And I remember him saying that, is that my 5 minutes? All right. Let's do it. I remember him saying that, it's okay. So, he said that typically the underground aquifer pretty much follows the contour of the above ground uh, watershed. In other words, we all know the watershed, if the ground was impermeable, if you dumped a cup of water up on top of Loxley Road, it's gonna run down all the way to the lake. But it's not gonna, it's gonna go down into sand, straight down until it hits something over it, and it takes, of course, up on the top of that ridge, it takes a lot longer than in front of my house.
But I'm with you until I saw maps of this. The aquifer actually runs kind of towards the Cut River in Roscommon. So there's actually water that in the aquifer that's underneath the Muskegon River watershed that is not going towards the Muskegon River.
That's correct, and that map that I saw showed that, and to Ed's point, that underground aquifer goes way up into the north and west of the lake, or much further than we thought of, underneath the Dead Stream Swamp. You think, well, that water in Dead Stream Swamp, of course, the surface water feeds into the Dead Stream and then the Muskegon. But the water percolates down into the lower levels, comes this way towards Higgins Lake. So I'd like to see the map that you're talking about, Paul, because the one that I saw, it's been 3 or 4 years ago, didn't indicate that. But anyway, so my point is, yeah, I'm all in favor of no fertilizer. My lawn is embarrassing. It's like it was when God made it, and I don't even water it. And you can come by anytime you want to and look at it.
So you're saying you got a big beach?
Coastal fertilizer back, back when I got out of the army, my buddies would be up here and they'd be playing frisbee and drinking beer. And I know 1 or 2 of them went off the side of the road or side of the property and,
Added some nitrates.
Then so I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, I'm in favor of it, but I'm in favor of it, to include the entire watershed. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
Any other public comments on this issue? Okay, hearing none. I would entertain a motion that the public hearing on potential fertilizer setback ordinance, a distance setback ordinance, one that we come to a close. And a second.
What is our next steps in this?
We got to close the hearing.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So do I have a second on closing the hearing?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion from the board? Okay, all those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. From my standpoint, we made a small movement forward. We learned some things. Now based on this meeting, we will be having meetings to go forward with a short-term rental ordinance. And in those meetings, we'll be discussing how we did it because we did not have a successful vote for one option.
We couldn't have done another option? Or
we didn't have another, it was one or the other for tonight.
It was only 2.
And I did not make a motion that we try and do any kind of blended thing tonight. I think that takes a lot more conversation on our part. We got somewhere. We're gonna do an ordinance. And we voted to not do it based on police power, so we got that. Or no, I shouldn't say that.
No, we didn't.
We didn't vote. It did not have support to do it as reasonable at this meeting. We have a work session coming up. I suspect it'll be on the agenda. And Steve, you're right. I only put this in here in my book. It's short-term rental, then septic ordinance. Fertilizer thing was just kind of a sideline.
I mean, you're saying 2 weeks now till we discuss this again?
Why is that a surprise? If you want to have a special meeting, we can.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we've dragged our
If you're
feet
gonna have a special
long
meeting,
enough. Let's get this going.
you give.
We have another one Monday. I
know that's-
want to get this thing moving like.
It's a lot for me, you didn't want to have special meetings.
Well,
I don't care.
You-
Propose one.
you make me want to have special meetings.
Propose one.
Don't you have to give?
We won't be able
18 hours.
Tuesday, this should be off level.
We didn't want to move it along.
Let's at least get the way we're going to apply the ordinance done, and then we start working on the ordinance.
I'm gonna suggest that we don't do anything for a week and we talk about it individually without violating an open meeting act. And if you want to set a meeting, my opposition would be set a meeting, you do a knee-jerk reaction to something without a chance for us to talk. So give it a week and then set a meeting.
And I've been working on this for 7 months, and if we were in a proper meeting this evening, I would be able to vote on it very confidently right now.
So we need another meeting.
We have to have a special meeting because we're not in a special meeting right now in our open session to vote on it.
In either case,
We close the hearing. We're not going to make any decisions.
it's not gonna make. I understand.
Yeah.
Kind of vote on either one. And I get input, and that's what we did.
All we need is 18 hours for the special notice or special meetings notice.
Okay. My suggestion is wait at least a week. If you want to make a motion to have a meeting after that, I don't care, go for it.
We can make the motion right now as a board.
No, I won't second it. I won't.
Well, it's only a motion, and then the board can say yes or no.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody do it. I'm not gonna do it because I don't favor.
So Clerk Pern, you just stated earlier that you wanted to move this along, but you're not in support of a motion to have a meeting posted so we can get a.
Kevin that said he wanted to move.
Well, make the motion. If you want me to.
Election coming up Tuesday, and all my stuff is pointing towards that.
Okay,